The Obsidian Equilibrium. Chapter 1. The Somber Sorcerer's Gambit. From the obsidian spire that pierced the perpetually twilight sky, Walter surveyed his domain. Not a kingdom of flesh and blood, but a nexus of arcane energies, a sanctuary for forgotten arts. The air here, thick with the scent of ozone and ancient parchment, hummed with the suppressed power of centuries. He was Walter, sorcerer and necromancer, master of existences that could not be ruled or brought to ruin by ordinary men. His reputation, woven with threads of fear and grudging respect, extended far beyond the borders of this desolate realm. But even a sorcerer of Walter's caliber could feel the unsettling shift in the cosmic balance, the insidious whispers of something wrong. It was a feeling that prickled at the edges of his senses, a disharmony that resonated deep within his very bones. Tonight, the feeling was amplified. As Walter leaned against the cold stone railing of his tower, he noticed the sky was not merely twilight, but stained with hues of an unnatural violet. The stars, normally distant pinpricks of light, seemed to writhe and pulse, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the barren landscape below. The wind carried a faint, discordant melody, a haunting lament that spoke of impending doom. He was used to bizarre phenomena, his life was steeped in the extraordinary. But this was different. This felt deliberate, malicious. A cosmic jest. Curious, he mused, his voice a low rumble that echoed through the spire. It seems someone has decided to make my evening more interesting. He retreated into the spire, the vast chambers echoing with the click of his boots against the stone floor. The walls were lined with shelves overflowing with grimoires, scrolls bound in human skin, and strange artifacts pulsating with arcane energies. In the center of the chamber, a massive obsidian table lay inscribed with intricate runes. Walter approached the table, his eyes scanning the swirling patterns. With a flick of his wrist, he summoned a shimmering orb of pure energy that floated above the runes, illuminating them with an ethereal glow. The runes shimmered, and the air crackled with power. Walter began to chant, his voice resonating with ancient incantations. He delved into the depths of his magical knowledge, seeking to decipher the meaning of the celestial disturbance. The orb intensified, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls, transforming familiar objects into monstrous shapes. The air grew heavy, and Walter felt a pressure building in his mind, as if something was trying to force its way into his consciousness. Suddenly, a cacophony of laughter erupted from the depths of the cosmos, echoing through the spire. It was a chilling, mocking sound, devoid of joy and filled with a sinister amusement. The laughter seemed to claw at Walter's mind, attempting to unravel his sanity. He staggered back, clutching his head in agony. The orb flickered and died, plunging the chamber into darkness. So, Walter gasped, struggling to maintain his composure. The Evil One decides to grace us with his presence. The Evil One. A being of otherworldly realms, a cosmic entity of pure malice. His existence was an insult to the very fabric of reality. He reveled in chaos and destruction, twisting the laws of nature for his own amusement. Walter had clashed with him before, but never on this scale. The Evil One's influence was now seeping into Walter's domain, corrupting everything it touched. As if in answer, the obsidian table cracked, and a grotesque form oozed from the fissure. It was a creature of pure nightmare, its flesh twisted and distorted, its eyes burning with malevolent intent. The creature lunged at Walter, its claws dripping with corrosive venom. Walter reacted instantly, summoning a wall of pure energy that slammed into the creature, sending it reeling back. He unleashed a barrage of spells, each one designed to incinerate, shatter, or banish the abomination. The creature shrieked in agony, its flesh bubbling and melting under the onslaught. But it was relentless, its grotesque form regenerating almost as quickly as it was destroyed. Walter realized that this was merely a taste of what was to come. The Evil One was testing him, probing his defenses, preparing the stage for a far greater assault. He knew that he could not face this threat alone. He needed allies, resources, and a plan. But whom could he trust? In this desolate realm, trust was a rare and dangerous commodity. Just then, a voice echoed in his mind, a voice both familiar and unsettling, filled with warmth and light. "Walter," it resonated, "darkness is encroaching. Seek the light, you are not alone." The voice belonged to Luminia, a celestial being he'd previously dismissed as a fanciful myth. Born from the dying embers of a supernova, she was a beacon of hope, a guardian of light. Her very existence was anathema to the forces of darkness. Walter had always considered her a naive idealist, too pure and innocent to comprehend the harsh realities of the cosmos. But now, as darkness threatened to engulf everything, he was willing to reconsider. "Luminia," Walter thought, his voice barely a whisper. "Can you help me?" Single quote. A burst of light filled the spire, blinding Walter for a moment. When his vision cleared, he saw her, a radiant figure standing before him. Her eyes shone with an ethereal glow, and her presence exuded warmth and peace. She was everything Walter was not, pure, selfless, and filled with unwavering hope. "I have seen the darkness that plagues your realm, Walter," Luminia said, her voice gentle but firm. "The Evil One seeks to corrupt everything. But you are not powerless. You have the strength to resist. And you are not alone." Walter stared at her, a mixture of skepticism and hope swirling within him. He was a sorcerer, a master of darkness. What could a being of light possibly teach him? But as he looked into her eyes, he saw a depth of compassion and understanding that he had never encountered before. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could be the key to defeating the Evil One. Luminia extended her hand, her touch sending a surge of energy through Walter's body. "Together," she said, "we can face the darkness." As Walter took her hand, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within his soul. The battle ahead would be long and arduous, but with Luminia by his side, he was ready to face whatever horrors the Evil One had in store. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble beneath them. The obsidian spire groaned and creaked, as if on the verge of collapse. A massive fissure erupted in the floor, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. From the depths of the vortex, a chilling voice echoed, a voice that sent shivers down Walter's spine. "You cannot stop me, Walter," the voice hissed. "The darkness is coming, and there is nothing you can do to prevent it." The vortex widened, and a monstrous form emerged from its depths. It was a being of pure darkness, its eyes burning with malevolent intent. The darkest being. A force of utter annihilation, an embodiment of cosmic despair. Walter knew that this was the ultimate test. The Evil One had unleashed his most terrifying weapon. The fate of existence hung in the balance. And Walter, the somber sorcerer, was the only one who could stand against it. He looked at Luminia, her eyes filled with determination. Together, they would face the darkness. Together, they would fight for the light. The sorcerer and the celestial being, united against the forces of cosmic evil. Chapter 2. Fractured Mirrors of Reality. The air crackled with malevolent energy as the darkest being materialized before them, a vortex of shadows coalescing into a form that defied comprehension. Walter felt a cold dread creep into his heart, a chilling reminder of the cosmic horrors he had long sought to control. Luminia, her radiant form unwavering, stepped forward, a beacon of defiance against the encroaching darkness. "We cannot allow it to spread," she declared, her voice resonating with celestial power. "The darkness consumes everything it touches." Walter, still grasping Luminia's hand, felt her energy coursing through him, bolstering his resolve. He focused his mind, summoning the arcane energies that pulsed within him. The obsidian spire trembled, but he anchored it with his will, preventing its complete collapse. He would not let the darkest being claim his domain. "So," Walter said, his voice a grim whisper, "it seems the Evil One has decided to play his final card." The darkest being did not respond, its presence alone a suffocating weight. It raised a hand, and a wave of pure darkness surged toward them, threatening to engulf everything in its path. Walter acted swiftly, erecting a barrier of arcane energy, a shimmering shield that deflected the wave of darkness. The impact was immense, and Walter felt his strength waning. The darkest being was far more powerful than he had anticipated. "We must find a way to weaken it," Luminia said, her eyes scanning the creature's form. "It draws its power from despair and hopelessness." Walter knew she was right. The darkest being thrived on negativity, feeding on the fears and sorrows of the cosmos. He needed to find a way to introduce light and hope into the equation. "Luminia, focus your energy," Walter instructed. "Create a beacon of light, a source of hope that will pierce the darkness." Luminia nodded, closing her eyes and concentrating her power. A blinding light emanated from her, pushing back the encroaching shadows. The darkest being recoiled, hissing in pain as the light seared its form. Emboldened, Walter unleashed a barrage of spells, each one infused with Luminia's light. The spells struck the darkest being, causing it to convulse and writhe. But the creature was resilient, its form constantly regenerating from the shadows. The battle raged on, the spire shaking under the force of their attacks. Walter and Luminia fought side by side, their powers complementing each other. But they were slowly being overwhelmed. The darkest being was too strong, too relentless. Suddenly, the floor beneath them gave way, plunging them into a nightmarish realm. It was a twisted reflection of Walter's domain, a landscape of broken dreams and shattered hopes. The air was thick with despair, and grotesque entities lurked in the shadows, feeding on the negative energy. "This is the Evil One's creation," Luminia said, her voice filled with disgust. "He has twisted reality to suit his own perverse amusement." Walter realized that they were trapped in a psychological labyrinth, a realm designed to break their spirits. The Evil One was using the darkest being as a distraction, while he assaulted their minds with twisted illusions and horrifying visions. "We must not succumb to despair," Walter declared, his voice ringing with determination. "We must hold on to hope, even in the face of this madness." He closed his eyes, focusing on Luminia's light, drawing strength from her unwavering belief. He began to reshape the realm around him, replacing the twisted illusions with images of beauty and hope. He summoned memories of joy, compassion, and love, filling the landscape with positive energy. The grotesque entities recoiled, their forms flickering and fading in the face of Walter's resolve. The air grew lighter, and the sense of despair began to dissipate. The nightmarish realm began to transform, becoming a reflection of Walter's inner strength. The evil one's laughter echoed through the realm, filled with frustration and anger. "You cannot defeat me, Walter," he sneered. "I am the master of this realm. I control reality itself." Walter opened his eyes, his gaze filled with defiance. "You may control this realm, evil one," he said. "But you do not control me. I am the master of my own destiny." With a surge of power, Walter shattered the illusions of the nightmarish realm, revealing the true nature of reality. The darkest being stood before them, weakened and vulnerable. "Now, Luminia," Walter said. "Strike with all your light." Luminia unleashed a torrent of pure light, engulfing the darkest being in its radiant embrace. The creature shrieked in agony, its form dissolving into nothingness. The darkness receded, and the realm was bathed in light. The evil one's laughter faded, replaced by a chilling silence. Walter knew that this was not the end. The evil one would be back, with new horrors and twisted schemes. But for now, they had won a victory. As the light subsided, Walter noticed a hidden portal shimmering in the distance. It was a pathway to the darkest being's realm, a place of utter annihilation. He knew that they had to close the portal, before the darkest being could return. "We must venture into the heart of darkness," Walter said, his voice filled with resolve. "We must sever the connection between our world and the darkest being's realm." Luminia nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "Then let us go," she said. "Together, we will face whatever horrors await us." Walter took her hand, and together they stepped through the portal, ready to confront the ultimate source of darkness. The journey through the portal was disorienting, a chaotic swirl of shadows and fragmented memories. Walter felt his mind being pulled in 1,000 directions, as if the very fabric of his being was being unraveled. He clung to Luminia's hand, drawing strength from her unwavering presence. Finally, they emerged into the darkest being's realm. It was a place of utter desolation, a landscape of eternal night. There was no light, no hope, only an endless expanse of darkness. The air was thick with despair, and Walter felt his strength waning once more. "This is where it ends," Walter declared, his voice echoing through the desolate realm. "We will not allow the darkness to consume us." As he spoke, a legion of shadowy figures materialized before them, the minions of the darkest being. They were grotesque and terrifying, their forms twisted by despair and hatred. Walter and Luminia stood side by side, ready to face the ultimate test. The fate of existence hung in the balance. And they were the only ones who could stand against the encroaching darkness. Chapter 3: Twilight's Fateful Surrender. The legion of shadowy figures lunged forward, their eyes burning with malevolent intent. Walter felt a surge of adrenaline, his senses sharpening as he prepared for the final battle. He was weary, his powers diminished, but he would not yield. He would stand against the darkness, even if it meant sacrificing everything. "Luminia, create a shield of light," Walter commanded. "I will break through their ranks." Luminia nodded, closing her eyes and summoning her celestial power. A radiant aura enveloped them, a shimmering barrier that pushed back the encroaching shadows. The shadowy figures recoiled, hissing in pain as the light seared their forms. With a roar, Walter unleashed a torrent of arcane energy, blasting a path through the legion of shadowy figures. He moved with blinding speed, his spells incinerating, shattering, and banishing the creatures of darkness. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of destruction. But the shadowy figures were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. They swarmed him, clawing at his flesh, attempting to drag him into the darkness. Walter fought with desperate ferocity, but he was slowly being overwhelmed. Suddenly, Luminia cried out, her voice filled with pain. Walter turned to see her shield flickering and fading, under the relentless assault of the shadowy figures. She was weakening, her light dimming. Walter knew that they were on the verge of defeat. The darkest being's realm was draining their strength, sapping their hope. If they did not find a way to turn the tide, all would be lost. Luminia, you must retreat. Walter shouted. Save yourself. Single quote. I will not abandon you, Walter, Luminia replied, her voice filled with defiance. We are in this together. Walter felt a surge of love and gratitude for Luminia's unwavering loyalty. He knew that he could not ask her to sacrifice herself for him. But he also knew that he could not defeat the darkest being alone. He closed his eyes, focusing his mind, reaching deep within himself. He delved into the depths of his soul, seeking the source of his power. He remembered his past, his triumphs and failures, his loves and losses. He remembered the countless times he had faced death and emerged victorious. He remembered why he had become a sorcerer, why he had dedicated his life to protecting existence. He realized that he had been arrogant, blinded by his own power. He had underestimated the darkness, believing that he could control it. But he had been wrong. The darkness was far greater than he had ever imagined. And the only way to defeat it was to embrace the light. With a surge of will, Walter relinquished his control over the darkness. He released the arcane energies that pulsed within him, allowing them to flow freely, merging with Luminia's light. He surrendered his power, sacrificing everything for the sake of existence. A blinding light erupted from Walter, engulfing the darkest being's realm in its radiant embrace. The shadowy figures shrieked and dissolved, their forms consumed by the light. The darkness receded, and the realm was transformed into a landscape of shimmering beauty. The darkest being recoiled, his form flickering and fading. He could not withstand the power of Walter's sacrifice. He was being driven back into the void, his reign of terror brought to an end. You cannot defeat me. The darkest being roared, his voice filled with rage and despair. I am the darkness. I am eternal. You are not eternal, Walter replied, his voice filled with compassion. You are merely a part of existence. And existence will always find a way to overcome the darkness. With a final shriek, the darkest being vanished, his presence erased from existence. The realm was bathed in light, and a sense of peace and tranquility settled over the land. Walter opened his eyes, his body weak and his powers gone. He was no longer a sorcerer, a master of necromancy. He was merely a man, stripped bare of his magical abilities. But he was not afraid. He had faced the ultimate darkness and emerged victorious. He had sacrificed everything for the sake of existence, and he had no regrets. Luminia approached him, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. She reached out and took his hand, her touch sending a surge of warmth through his body. "You have saved us all, Walter," she said, her voice gentle and filled with admiration. "You have shown us the true meaning of sacrifice." Walter smiled, his heart filled with joy. He had found redemption in the face of darkness. He had learned the true meaning of love and compassion. Together, Walter and Luminia walked through the transformed realm, marveling at the beauty and tranquility that had replaced the desolation and despair. They had created a new equilibrium, a balance between light and darkness. The realm would forever carry the scars of battle, but it would also be a testament to the power of sacrifice and the enduring strength of hope. As they reached the edge of the realm, Walter turned to Luminia, his eyes filled with love. "What now?" he asked. Luminia smiled, her eyes shining with celestial light. "Now," she said, "we rebuild." Together, they stepped back into Walter's domain, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had defeated the darkest being, but they knew that the forces of darkness would always be present. But they were not afraid. They had each other, and they had the knowledge that even in the darkest of times, hope could always prevail. The somber sorcerer's gambit had concluded, not in ruin, but in a twilight surrender to a brighter dawn.